So it's with great pleasure today that I get to speak with Beth E. Baker. Hi, Beth.
Hello, Sharon.
And Beth, I know that you're all the way over there in America and we've got a few internet challenges. So hopefully, fingers crossed, everything will keep going for us because it's been a long time. We've been trying to set up this meeting. So now I have you. I'm going to keep hold of you.
Jolly good.
So, Beth, we're here today to talk about how you've healed your past traumas using Matrix Reimprinting. And, you know, we've just been chatting before we started filming this, and we were talking about complex PTSD. So, first of all, could I just ask you just to explain a little bit about your definition of complex PTSD and how you found that's affected your life?
Thank you. My knowledge and experience of complex PTSD is that the individual experiences a trauma and then another and another and another, and each trauma complicates the other so that we have, as it were, a web and a network of triggers that are playing off of one another, to use very rough and ready terms. And when working with an individual, myself or another person with complex PTSD, how would I describe this? It's like one of those video games, opening doors, and then there's a box, and then there's another, and then there's another, and they're all related. And you can think that you've addressed everything, and then lo and behold, this person has something that they're still dissociated from that comes to the fore. So it's kind of like peeling layers of an onion crossed with a video game, if that makes any sense. And that's why we call it complex. In my own case, I have advanced terrifically and with much gratitude in reintegrating with my whole life. Even so recently as this week, to discover new areas and layers that are still affecting. And when we understand that, it can be dismaying, but we can be confident to deal with it, especially if we have the skill of Matrix Reimprinting.
Beautiful. And for people who don't really understand that idea of disassociating from trauma and not remembering it, could you describe the process that happens when we've experienced a trauma and why that disassociation occurs?
Let's imagine a child who is just simply being a child and living and learning and feels very new to life, is very impressionable, and boom, there's a trauma. And it's so startling, and the child has no sense of enough allies or enough skills to deal with it. So there's this, in the instance that it happens, a wonderful thing called dissociation, where the child will automatically, in most cases, assign the problem to a part of self as if it were another person, even though it's really a part of him or herself. And so that part will split off and carry the problem, while consciously this child will go forward, coping with life in the here and now physically. This is dissociation. And as one wise EFT practitioner said one time, it's like a bank account. We can draw on the account over and over again until the point, at some point in life, we're really quite depleted. And then we need to do something if we're going to keep living and having our life and enjoying.
So did there come a point for you, Beth, that you suddenly realized you had depleted your bank account? And what happened for you in that moment?
The first time I recall definitely realizing my bank account was depleted, I was 15 years old.
Okay, that's it.
And
yeah.
I began to feel so exhausted mentally, emotionally, that for the first time consciously, I wondered about death.
Mm.
And my response at the time was to turn to the best of psychology that I knew to find at that time. I'm 65, so that's 50 years ago. And it was a book called The Transparent Self, which I still highly recommend. It's consonant with our Matrix and EFT work in that we are open about our own processes as much as is appropriate with our clients in the work that we do. And Dr. Sidney M. Girard, the author of that wonderful book, that was what he was recommended, being transparent with one another in the course of healing. So I became aware, but I hadn't the skills, and I went through many years of further shocks every time I had a life transition. And this is true for people generally. When we can roll along, we can kind of keep our nose above the waves, and then there'll be a life transition. Leaving home for college, having a boyfriend or a girlfriend, losing a job, whatever it might be. It might even be a terrifically positive thing. And we will be stressed for our resources. And at that point, we look at the bank account, there isn't enough, there will be crises. I've had plenty of those over the years. And it was when I learned how to make EFT and then subsequently Matrix Reimprinting work for me that I began to get real traction on recovering my resources, restoring and replenishing my bank account, and making allies out of the once dissociated parts of myself, being able to be, as they say, to be friendly within.
Beautiful. And you also mentioned when we were talking earlier about it's Matrix Reimprinting is a bit like soul retrieval. So you're bringing in those parts of yourself that got split off in those times of trauma.
Yes. I've done that work through classic shamanic soul retrieval. I have training and experience in that. However, I find Matrix Reimprinting to be particularly excellent in that, by my way of thinking, it combines a lot of the best of hypnosis without the person being in that much or kind of an altered state, so that we are able to examine our non-ordinary states of thinking and feeling, parts that we can safely examine, parts of ourselves, while still being really nicely grounded in the here and now with a competent and skilled practitioner. And excuse me. And then we have the wonderful storyline of visiting with these other parts of ourselves in a friendly manner. I think it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, to say to an earlier aspect of oneself, hello, I'm you from the future, I love you, and I'm here to help. It's just so perfect. I get a thrill every time I think of it. And I see the restoration, as I said before, a friendly world within, the restoration of self-friendship and aspects or parts of ourselves being able to speak up, be heard clearly and freely without interruption, and to completely state what is desired without any judgment or imposition or anything. And when we make it clear in the vivid imaginal matrix field to our other parts of self that yes, everyone is included, everyone gets the needs met, and we're going to do this right now. As you know, the subconscious mind receives this emotionally as valid and real as physical experience. And then the individual, me in this case, experiences a wonderful renewal of self-inclusion and restored energy and creativity and intelligence. and all kinds of wonderful and amazing and fun things.
Beautiful. And one of the things that Carl says about trauma is that it's an event in our life where we feel totally isolated. So
Yes.
just by us as our
Yes.
elder self stepping back into that memory with our younger self, that means our younger self is no longer on its own. It has
Absolutely. I can give you an example if that would help. So I was working with Matrix Reimprinting with facilitation of a colleague at one time. And because I have an early history that's particularly shocking and difficult, there were many younger selves. That doesn't always happen. I think a lot of people may have a select few, but for some of us, it's quite a crowd. And we were sitting there scratching our heads thinking, what do we do with this? When I had the most wonderful experience, as if a crowd of these rowdy little girls, all of whom are aspects of me, said, this is what we want. We want to have the heaven place. And that was, as it were, their terms. I listened through active imagination. I listened. And they said, the heaven place for us will be managed by all these lovely, powerful angels, and we will have convincing real models of all the adults who abused us, and we will be able to flame them and chop their heads off, and in various ways do whatever violent and eager and active thing that any child who had the ability to defend him or herself would do. And they said, this will be our heaven place. So it's like kind of like a playground for a lot of angry children. So we said, fine. I said, fine, let's do it. Let's go for it. And the experience for me afterwards was almost beyond description, so wonderful and freeing. And every now and then I check in and it's like, yeah, we're having a good time in the heaven place and it's great. Want to watch us blow something up? So sure, I'll watch you blow something up, and we have a great time. Very similar to how a good parent is with his or her own children. Only in this case, where we are, as you know, reparenting ourselves.
Yes.
And as we pointed out, it's so important to listen to the children or the child.
Yeah. So in that moment of isolation, we're also feeling pretty powerless and helpless to do anything about the situation. So, it sounds like you did your little selves knew what they needed in order to get back to that place of empowerment. And although we don't condone the use of violence, sometimes when you've got that anger and that you've not been able to express it in any way, then, let's find a way of releasing that anger.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because this is in the, if you will, the boundaries of the matrix place, the active imagination, maybe a more familiar term. And what I find interesting is that even the angry and having been isolated, having felt powerless parts of myself wanted models not to hurt real people.
Yeah.
So that the limbic, the lower brainstem natural impulse to fight could be discharged in the right place with the right people and the right accoutrements, the right things, rather than being spewed out into the world in some way that would fail to serve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've in various different ways that happens and echoes, maybe they want a punch bag, or maybe they want to sit down and draw that person and stab the pencil into the drawing and things like this. So, what we're saying is here is that, it's not a real person, it's the model of the person. But that is really, there's so many children that get angry about things and they're told not to be angry, so they turn it inwards on themselves, and that is just so disempowering for them. But we also need to find that safe container and that safe boundaries for them to express who they are and how they're feeling, and not make them bad for it.
That's what I find in Matrix Reimprinting for myself and everyone I work with.
Yeah. Brilliant. So, Beth, how have you found that life's different I mean, how long have you been doing matrix reimprinting with your younger selves?
Thank you for asking. I trained with Carl Dawson in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 2010, and I've been using matrix reimprinting somehow or another every single day since then. When I wake up in the morning, I check in with myself and see what I want to do that day. Often it will be to address an issue that's up via a matrix session with myself. Some days I come at it from a different angle, but honestly, I feel that the matrix approach is hologrammatic, meaning that it has permeated all my thinking, all my actions. I find it even in my dream states. So it's something I'm flowing with all the time, and every now and then I will create a formal session either with myself or with a colleague facilitating. Now, working with other people, from the beginning that I learned how to skillfully use matrix reimprinting with Carl Dawson and my other colleagues at that wonderful training, I have began right away using it with clients, and I have seen always wonderful results. As we say also with EFT, there's one time it doesn't work, and that's when you don't do it. Otherwise, I literally have never seen anything but truly significant restoration for myself and others with whom I've worked.
Brilliant. And is there any particular area, Beth, that you work with clients?
Say again, please.
Is there any particular area that you work with clients? Any speciality? You know, what are you most passionate about when you're working with clients to help them transform?
What I am most passionate about is working with people who are already quite skilled in whatever they're doing, whether it's academia or athletics or the arts or achievement. Yeah, I think of the A's appropriately. And what we do is we discover and remove and or transform all the distractions so that the individual can fulfill his or her goals free from driving with the brakes on. And interestingly, this also can include people who are mired in very severe distress with trauma as well, because I don't see any of my clients as broken. And for me, a person with a large roster of trauma to get through is absolutely an achiever and a winner, just the same as, let's say, my doctoral student client, with whom I worked initially 3 sessions, matrix reimprinting, and his college entrance score for reading went up 40%.
Wow.
So that in my way of approaching, my clients are winners who are coming to me to access their inherent skills, and I will remind them how to use what they have. And one of those skills, which is perfectly natural and thankfully brought to us currently through Carl and other colleagues, is matrix reimprinting.
Beautiful. And if somebody was kind of listening to this and was drawn to working with you, how would they contact you?
At this time, my website, beth-e-baker.com, is in the lab for repairs, and they're perfectly welcome to contact me via Facebook at Beth E. Baker. And I'm wearing a red beret in my profile picture, but otherwise it's the same lady and the same smile. You're bound to recognize me, and I'll be absolutely thrilled to offer, as I always do, a half-hour free initial session so we can sense if we're a good fit to work with one another. If the individual still wishes to do this kind of work, but I'm not the fit, I'm absolutely delighted to refer them to you or Carl or any number of other wonderful, highly skilled colleagues. I always want everyone to have the right fit, and that's always the most important to me.
Yeah, beautiful. Beth, you have done so much work on yourself. You know, over the years that I've known you, you've just transformed so much, but you're forever ever sharing your learnings about what you're doing too. So I really think you ought to start teaching at some point too.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I think I was born with a piece of chalk in my hand.
I think so too.
I come from a family of teachers, so I'm absolutely thrilled to take that to heart. Thank you.
Brilliant. And if there was a message that you could send to Carl Dawson, what would you like to say to him?
Oh, now you're bringing tears to my eyes. I didn't expect this. Oh dear, public weeping. My. Carl, I'm endlessly grateful to you, and I'd like to share my byline with you. And I want you to know that you are a truly key person in my being able to say this with joy and sincerity. Play is the gold standard of all goodness. Wow.
Okay, you got me going too.
Wow.
Get the tissues out, Carl.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Beth, it's an absolute joy to speak with you, and thank you so much for sharing just a little bit of your time with us today. So thank you.
Oh, likewise, Sharon. We had to you know, like, what is that Mario game where he hops over all those things and all of that? We had to do a lot of journeying to get to this point, and I'm ever so grateful. It's just perfect, and I'm so thankful for you, my dear.
You're very welcome, and I do appreciate the fact that you've just gone through a big transition time yourself, and you've handled it with utter grace, so well done you.
Well, thank you. There's more to come. May I continue to equip myself well.
Well, you have the tools.
Yes, I do, and I'm more than happy to share them with everybody who feels I might be the right match.
Yeah, not only do you have the tools, but you're also willing to use them. So.
Oh, yeah, I have the tools. I'm willing to use them. Watch out, you may become happy if you work with me.
Yeah, you should have that as a little warning sign on your website. Warning, may make you happy.
Yeah, a friend of mine photoshopped my face onto Glenda the Good Witch with, you know, the magic wand. I want a business card with that. Excellent.
Perfect. All right, my darling. Thank you so much.
Mwah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.